So, Dave, did you do anything fun this weekend?
It was pretty chill, man. Just kind of hung around the house. Spent several hours with about 8,900 of my best friends. How about you?
Same. I was experimenting with a cold open there. I liked it. I thought it felt good.
Never done that before.
Yeah, welcome to United Sessions, everyone. I'm Lucas Cash. He's David Carl. We love spending our Monday evenings with you and talking to someone far more interesting than ourselves, and that is going to be the formula for tonight as well. But before we get to that and introduce our amazing guest, we've got some big-time business to discuss. We got back together, like you said, thousands of our family members reunited for the first time in 574 days. And let me just go ahead and say the fellas on the field took the occasion seriously and gave us everything we wanted and then some. So talk about some of those Mount Rushmore moments from the weekend for you.
Whew, there's too many to list. But for me, obviously, I think you and I talked about it before, a little bit bittersweet. It was my first game ever that I was not there with the curse, in the stands, in front of the stands, leading the chants and stuff like that. So that was a little tough for me. But when I got to do the march to the match with those incredible people, those incredible fans across the street, around the stadium, at that point, I knew we were home. It really felt like home at that point. I went up to my spot in the press box, and just looking down from the press box on the supporter section, I felt like a proud papa. Just seeing this amazing group of people set off those smoke bombs, lead those chants. Billy Anthony did an incredible job leading capoing in that situation, and just it felt like home again, man. It felt so incredible to be back.
Yeah, it wasn't until you told me that I really started to conceptualize what a different sort of feel that had to be for you. It had to be just so emotionally charged, almost like this ship that you built, the frame of, and that you were a major part of. To be a part of, like, you're not captaining that ship, man. You're a passenger on it, and you do that beautiful float around the stadium with them. And then you say, all right, now you guys go into this harbor, and I'm going to go be the best dadgum director of communications and fan experience this league has ever met. So absolutely special night. We did have just a minor hiccup on my side of things, which is where, we had some holes in the field, and the referee probably rightfully held off on starting the game because he really wanted to get those holes filled, not understanding that I am highly prone to anxiety on game days, and that as the clock just
ticked, if only the referee knew how much anxiety you typically have, he never would have cared about player safety.
Yeah, that's right. And I would like the USL Referees Association to maybe take that into consideration as they're laying out policy in the future. My anxiety is real. Dave, we have a great guest tonight to celebrate the historic, return to Rio Grande Credit Union Field at Isotopes Park, where our boys took care of business. 3-1, gritty performance. Magical moment with hometown hero Sergio Rivas striking the first goal, and that place just erupting. Like, I cannot imagine what's going through his mind. We've had Kalen talk about it. We've had Harry talk about it, but now it's real, man. Now it is something that is banked in the ledgers, and I could not be happier. Cloud 9 level feelings going into all of this week.
We've had 2 home openers in our history. Obviously didn't have one in 2020. In both of those games, the first goal was scored by an Albuquerque native. It doesn't get much better than that. That's incredible. Incredible. I mean, it's hometown soccer at its absolute finest. And you mentioned, it was a gritty performance. We go up 1-0 on Sergio's goal, and then right after the half, they come and tie it up, and we're thinking, oh, this is uncomfortable. I don't like that. And what did our boys do? They responded. A couple goals there, one from Brian Brown, one from Amando Moreno, that is up for goal of the month goal of the week rather in the USL. You should go vote on that on Twitter, on social media.
Rock the vote, people.
So, gritty performance, a very New Mexican performance, and we made that place loud. And I'm so proud of every single fan who came and showed up and showed out, and we showed what New Mexico is all about, man.
It was gorgeous, getting to see it on the broadcast side. Like, it was a reintroduction. Like, we didn't get to be in the lab at all in 2020. Like, and those are just facts, and they're miserable facts. And I think Peter said it best today. He's like, that has got to be the longest streak that we don't play at Isotopes Park. We do not want to deal with a longer one on that. Let's talk a little Hakim Bellamy, because we're going cultural tonight, Dave. We are bringing in someone that just runs circles around us in terms of talent.
Who doesn't? Let's be very clear. Hakim is incredible, but you're setting a low bar, buddy.
I think we can hold our own against producer Dylan, but he's pretty good. So I don't want to take an unnecessary shot at him. Yeah, we have Hakim Bellamy, former. I actually we'll have him explain this. What happens with poet laureate of a city? Is it a title you always kind of keep? Is it like a championship belt that you have to pass along to people? We will definitely ask him for clarification on that very, very important point. But as we're going into the break, he's going to do a little performance for us. Dave, you want to talk a little bit about this piece?
Yeah, so if you have missed out on the legend of Troy Lesesne, first of all, what the hell are you doing? Second of all,
wow,
you're about to get about a minute of an incredible performance and an incredible, just a full. It was an incredible poem created for Troy Lesesne to honor his Coach of the Year award from last year, but it became so much more than that. You know, it was not just the writing of the poem, which is incredible, but the presentation that Hakim put out there. Absolutely fantastic. Caught me up in tears a couple times throughout it. And then our creative team, as they always do, Josh Lane, Isaiah Watts, David Young, put together a wonderful video surrounding the entire thing. And so we've got about a minute of it. I want you to tune in, watch that minute, come back. We're going to talk to Hawk. It'll be great. Then after this episode is over, go watch the full video. It's incredible. So Hakim Bellamy on the other side of this break. But before we get to Hakim Bellamy, how about a little bit of Hakim Bellamy?
Raise your glass. They say that good guys finish last. Well, if he has anything to say about it, Lesesne of Troy will have the last laugh. Pull up a seat, lad. Let me lecture you a legend. A tale of too many cities, so let's go back to the beginning. A long time ago in South Carolina, far away, way before winning. A legacy of Colombian football in his blood, no, not the country, his birth city. Third generation of Troy's his namesake, he played Papa proud. Out in these FIFA streets of life, he vanquished success at every level, so who's the boss now? To his friends, he's T-Roy. The second coming of Pete Rock and CL Smooth. To his frenemies, he's a long day at work and an even longer night at the bar when they reminisce over you, my God.
Woo!
God. Hakim Bellamy, thank you for taking some time out of your evening to join us. How are you feeling, my friend?
You know, I'm doing good, man. I appreciate y'all so much for always keeping the light on for a brother. Like whenever I'm called into action, I wish I was being called to action for my soccer skills. That is not the case. But whenever I'm called into action, I'm happy to oblige. So thank you both.
Incredible, man. I mean, that was just a minute of. It's about a little over 5 minutes. The entire piece. Again. Let's hang out and have this conversation. But everybody who hasn't watched that entire thing, please afterwards go check it out. It's available on our YouTube page. Just absolutely incredible. And I want to talk about, there had to have been a decent amount of research. I mean, you get into some of the details about where Troy's from, his life, his coming to New Mexico, but long before that too. What was that process like, Hawk?
You know what, David? I'm gonna say DC, my main man DC. But you know what, David? It was crazy that besides getting the coach reached out afterwards. Coach was like, Hakim, and you know, part of what I was humbled by was that he's a fan of the lyric. He's a fan of the hip hop lyric particularly, and so he and I share that. But he was just like, you know, he said it way more elegantly in Troy's way, but basically he was like bars. And then the other biggest compliment came from his family. Like when I went to and shout out to the missus, you know, Amanda, because his wife was the one who kind of fed the information to us. Like she was the embedded rogue agent that, and like literally she interviewed him like and recorded it. Like, I don't know. It was like, I don't know how she did it. She must be like a former CIA agent, but she was able to interview him. And I had like a 17-minute interview of them talking in a car while he was eating a sandwich, answering questions that I gave her, because I was like, this is what I would really want to know. Like, I'm a fan. This is what I would really want to know. And she was able to get it done. So shout out to her. But in getting to know her and become friends as well, I was able to be on their social media, and their family, like her family and his family, were responding in ways that were like, that was deep. Like that, they were like, you got detail that maybe like everyone who's just a United fan that doesn't know his past may not understand. And that's what I'm always trying to write on levels, but that just felt, and I told him that when we talked after the poem went out, I was like, thank you for inviting me into your family, dude. Like, thank you.
It's amazing the amount of work you put on the front end of this, right? It would be very easy to write a shallow poem about Troy, right? Things that you can see from an ESPN Plus broadcast. He wears these sharp suits. He's highly inspirational. It could have been this very surface level thing, but you made it your mission. And I think you make this a mission in a lot of your work to go deeper. What's the next layer? What's the next level below that? And to me, that seems like it's got to be a product of some hardwiring that was done by your folks in the beginning, right? That just got you to a mental space where you're like, that's how you approach things. Talk about your folks, their influence on you, and how they helped you get to where you are now.
Oh yeah, no, that was a beautiful way of saying I'm nosy. I ask lots of questions. I like, I'm a nerd. I do lots of research. But I think that, definitely, like, my journalism background, it's very evident in my work. Like, you don't ever want to put something out there with bad information. What makes it more meaningful is when you can get that information either firsthand, or in this case, we had to be a little surreptitious because it was supposed to be a surprise. But I like to interview people. I like to talk to people, and I know that because I'm a performance artist, that in words are my medium. People like are and I'm a Gemini. People are like, oh, you like to talk. I was like, actually, I like to listen. I like to listen and pull. I like to get other people to talk. And then that becomes, food for the gander, right? And so that was, that's kind of always the process. I always say I get my best material from sitting in airports, because usually when you're in an airport, you're alone and you're just like listening to other people's conversations. And I put headphones on, but I don't have anything on, because I want to actually listen to people's conversations, and they turn into poems where they don't get any royalties. But my parents, yes, definitely my mom and dad, because I did the same thing with them, right? My father passed a few years ago. My mom is still around. They're both ministers, so they were professional talkers too. But I would sit in the back seat when we would go on road trips, right? And I was the oldest boy. And when they really wanted to get into the chisme of like family drama, but I was like too young to, like, I was like 8 or 9. They're like, we're not going to talk about this if they're awake. I would fake like I was asleep. Let them talk about all the, and so like, that's who I've been. That's who I've been.
So you're a professional eavesdropper.
Yes, pretty much.
So
I'd make a great spy, David, until it came to like firearms and combat, and then I would not make a great spy.
That's fair. You got the first part of it. So you, like I, have a background in journalism, you mentioned there. Talk a little bit about that. Where did that come from? I mean, did you have a strong affinity for journalism? I certainly do. And kind of how did you get from the idea of journalism to poetry? There's an obvious connection with words there, but how do you get from A to B?
Man, yeah, I would say this. Journalism was a kind of the outgrowth of when I moved out here from Philadelphia. I was definitely my first job. It was kind of happen chance how I got into journalism. Yay! Hey, shout out to the Philly Fanatic, the Philly Faithful, Philadelphia Nations. I kind of lucked up upon a job at Oñate Hall, because that was where KUNM was, and I was living in Coronado Hall, or the other way around. But I literally walked across the parking lot to get a work study job, and it happened to be at KUNM. It happened to be in a newsroom. I was one of my first journalism jobs there was as I was a call screener for the morning show before it was Let's Talk New Mexico. It was a KUNM call-in show, and as you showed the Philly Cup. The call-in show game is serious in Philadelphia, mainly around sports.
Oh my God, you get on one of those after an Eagles game, especially after an Eagles loss, you have to bleep every other word.
Bro, it's mad real. And so I felt like I was like, well, if this is what that is, I might be interested in chopping those things up into a production. So I got into like radio editing and things like that. And then I quickly learned that it was more fun to put the mic in other people's face than have the mic in my face. And y'all know me. I like the mic in my face. It's still more fun to put the mic in other people's faces. And so like what you guys are doing right now, I'm about the sharing of the stories, right? And still a news nerd, still very politically minded. Now I'm an old man, so I just scream at my TV when the news is on, especially in the past year. But I feel like it informs my poetry because that's where I go to find stories. And then I just transmit those stories or interpret those stories in a poetic form.
Well, I gotta go ahead, Lucas.
No. I'm loving this. I'm getting here, enjoying my drinks and listen to a couple of smart fellows talk. But you're right in my alley as well. The storytelling. When Dave and I put this thing together, we were very specific about what United Session was. Yes, we're going to talk about the team. We're going to talk about amazing victories. We're going to talk about getting the family back together. But we're going to tell the stories of New Mexicans because that is such an untapped mine, right? Nobody knows the sort of talent we are hoarding in this state. And I want to talk to you about the importance of the story in advancing that mission. Like over the next 10, 15 years, how is storytelling going to play a major part in advancing this state to the vision that we all have for it?
Ooh, that's a great question. I love that.
Man, I've taken the saying, and I always fess up. Like I'm a transplant. I'm a total poser. When people are like, "What's your pedigree? How do you have claim to being a New Mexican?" I'm like, my claim is I'm New Mexican by virtue of being my son being born at UNMH. But I've only been here 16 years, right? And soon I will be a New Mexican longer than I was a Philadelphian. Soon we're getting to that age where I'll tip over. But I always say that from an outside perspective, the greatest natural resource of New Mexico is its people and their stories. Like over everything. Like you could mine gold, you could mine oil. Like I don't care what you got going on. California's got solar, whatever. Like with our actual major, like our resource, our precious resource is the people and their stories. And I remember when I was working for a previous mayor, and he was like, what could we do around spoken word poetry? But he was also interested in like cowboy poetry and other forms of storytelling. And I was like, why would you go anywhere else than New Mexico? Like this is the center of the storytelling universe. And I only know it because I've been in rooms where people open mics, where people kind of do poetry, kind of do other things, stand-up comedy, and have just been like, what is this energy? What is this vortex that just makes people tell stories in a way that no one else tells them, like legends, like corridos, like these epic historical Rudolfo Anaya magical realism. Like we go to like a different weird place, and it's perfectly weird, and it only happens here, and it's just like your cousin that's saying something out of Matanza to you, like he's telling the story, and you're like, bro, that didn't happen, but keep going because it's cool. Like it's cool, I hear you though. Like
never let the truth get in the way of a good story, Hakim. Right, that's a philosophy Lucas Cash lives by. Great question from our dear friend Robert Romero here, big friend of the show. He says he considers great hip-hop artists to be great poets. And who do you consider to be great hip hop artists, Hawk?
Man,
sorry.
Yes to what they said. I do. And man, I'm coming up on a birthday. I know it's impolite for a young lady to divulge her age, but I'll be 43 here around the corner. And so I come from that generation of MCs that took the storytelling part very seriously. The Slick Ricks, the Notorious B.I.G.s. I'm from the Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Native Tongues, Leaders of the New School Era. That's just me. So I'm partial there. But I don't want to come off as an angry old man. I will say that some of the emergent hip hop that's happening is kind of going back there, especially the arrhythmic stuff that's going kind of away from the like traditional song structure, is getting back towards putting the lyrics in front instead of in back, right? And that's I'm a nerd. I'm a word nerd, so that's what I like. But but I also like to dance. I also like to shake my ass, and so I appreciate a good beat. I appreciate a good downbeat. James Brown, do it on the one. It's all good.
Breaking news here: Hakim Bellamy does in fact like to shake his ass. So if you're curious about that, we have full-on confirmation from him. Sorry to any of our younger ones watching for using such harsh language, but I think back in elementary school we always said that ass was in the Bible. So
thank you very much. Thanks for covering for me. Appreciate it.
No, you've just opened up another can of worms, and I have a feeling that this is going to end up being a bit of a Russian nesting doll, right, Dave? That we're going to start on a conversation, then we're going to expand it out, But you are very melodic in the way you approach things, Hakim. You are a word nerd, as you said, but there is most definitely a musical, rhythmic, you kind of want to move to it. I've said it in my Twitter preview of tonight's episode, like your performance on Meow Wolf Night with Ashley Say What Moyer is like a Mount Rushmore moment for me, right? So like you play an instrument, man. Don't sell yourself short. Like your words are an incredible instrument. I want to know, like, what are some of the most like intimate pieces that you've done? And you don't have to give like a categorical list. Maybe it's just more a category that when you get into this specific arena, you really feel like you're firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, no, thanks, Lucas. The approach I took to that night for the creatives night, for Meow Wolf Night, it was electric. I want to give through you all pass on to the club, and I've been able to talk to Peter about it since then. But like it was the most electric performance I think I've ever had, and I've been able to have some pretty blessed opportunities in my life. I've been able to perform for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I've been able to perform on a national poetry slam stage in Albuquerque at the Convention Center and win a national championship for this city. I've been able to do some pretty cool things. I've been blessed, but like 14,000 people was the most people I've ever performed in front of. And I've never performed, in center field in a minor league baseball park for a professional soccer team. That's on the list of things that's never happened either. Right. Like, and so I've always felt like when I moved here, however many years ago, and when we won that national championship, it was early in my tenure here. Like I moved here in 2005 in January, and in August, we were the national poetry slam champs. And then we went to win the college poetry slam as well. But it was like, ever since then, I was like, I am just like right guy, right place, right time. Like I moved here. There's been so much work done by the poetry community 20, 30 years before I arrived that made an audience, a market for what we did, and made skillful wordsmiths. And I walked into a good situation with the right skills, which as us sports fans know, that's the whole game, right? You walk into a good situation, people have been building it long before you got there, right? Timing is everything. And ever since then, my chip has been, this place has done so much to me, how can I like return the favor in little ways? And that just means working harder if you're writing a poem. It just means paying more attention. It means trying to show back to them the things you love about them. Like there's a reason I'm still here 17 years later. There's a reason I fell in love with this place. So every time I get to write an Albuquerque poem, which as a laureate, that's your job, is to write love poems to your city. But like I was the laureate in 2012 and 2014. So when I get called up, like literally, I felt like that. United was like, we're going to call him up. Like, tell that kid, get up, warm up. And I was like, oh, snap, I'm warming up. Let's go. Like, I just do the homework to kind of be like, this is why I love you. Like, I want you to see yourself through my eyes, right? And that they're I think of them as tribute poems. That's like I do have a category to your question, Lucas. And tribute poems are the poems that don't often like make you like the big bucks, and we're talking poetry bucks. So like the big bucks for poets, like down here. That's not the thing. If you're gonna do the college like circuit as a speaker at universities, no one wants to hear my New Mexico United poem. Or no one wants to hear the poem I wrote for my uncle's wedding or the poem I wrote for someone's funeral. Like tribute poems occupy a really narrow space, but they mean everything. They mean everything. And so I think I just that gets me worked up because I know that, this is not going to be a poem I'm just going to show up at a poetry slam or a feature and read necessarily. Like I will in New Mexico, but if I'm going to New York, they don't want to hear my New Mexico United poem. So the question is, do you invest that much level of detail and intention and time into it if you know it's a one-off? And I say you do if you love it. You do if you love it.
Yeah. My goodness gracious. That is an unbelievable answer to a ridiculous question of mine. Back over to you, Dave. We have a great question from our friend DJO.
Yeah, DJ Ortiz says, Hawk, what are the best spots to see up-and-coming artists? I'm assuming he means here in New Mexico, maybe in Albuquerque. Any names we should keep an eye out for? Well, man, that's crazy because I have to think pre-pandemic right now, right?
Right. Because right now I'm like, you're only going to find them on the screen. There were, I was lucky enough to be part of a variety show a few years back at Art Bar, where we had like a weekly Saturday thing that was like a wish list of musicians and poets and other artists that you could just like, you were making like, you were kind of doing, think NBA Jam. I'm dating myself there, but you could just pick 2 players from different teams.
He's on fire.
And he's on fire. He's heating up. And you could you could just put them together. And that was fun because it was like musicians and poets and artists and wordsmiths and comedians, they woodshed all the time. They just do it behind closed doors and you don't ever really get to see it. And then when they get to the show, they do everything that's polished. And so it was like a way to kind of do that in public. And there's a few places that do that. Ben Michaels does that. I know that the guys that are running that show, shout out to Claudio Toulouse, Asher Barreras, there's some dope musicians in town. They were having like a backyard patio thing pre-pandemic where some of the illest players in town would go play, and occasionally rappers or wordsmiths would show up. It was kind of like a little bit of an invite-only thing. I know John Nichols is doing a thing too now at what was the old Lobo Theater, if you're familiar with that Nob Hill area, that's going to be in there. And they're going for a similar thing with Ryan Montano kind of curating musicians. And if you know his work, fire. So the house band's always going to be dope. And then inviting, like, again, invite only, to check out some of these new artists, wordsmiths, lyricists, singers. So I feel like those spaces to me where there's like artist cross-pollination are some of the dopest places to go. And it's kind of how the underground, that's the underground proving ground. And then maybe a promoter sees you there and they say, come do our patio on Thursdays, or maybe this group that's like a threesome that really needs to be a foursome and they're just looking for a trumpet player will find oh, he's dope. He's going to be our fourth, right? And I just feel like those are the spaces you want to go. And you don't always get the chance as a consumer or an audience member to find that, because though artists are always on stage and in public, we are actually pretty like hermited creatures, because where else will we create? We have to create like alone before we put stuff out into the world. So anytime you can go to any place that's doing both, fire. That's where you want to be.
Well, Hawk, like you, I am a transplant. Like you, I am from Philadelphia. And Philly has an incredible art scene. Yes. Anything around South Street is beautiful. I was over near Fishtown. I mean, it's an incredible city. But I gotta say, I think people who are not from New Mexico, or even people who are from New Mexico, are unaware of the incredible artistic source that New Mexico is. Mm-hmm. Do you think that we as New Mexicans, whether transplanted or not, kind of take that for granted? I think it's easy. Sure. It's easy to just. People like to talk smack about New Mexico. People do, but it's easy to not see the incredible stuff that we have going on here from an artistic perspective.
For sure, David. It's like it's almost an embarrassment of riches. Like it's an embarrassment of riches. Like, and you're right. Philly is an artsy city. Shout out to the hometown. That's where I was just having a conversation with someone the other day where I was like, because they were like, well, how did you get into like the arts? And I was like, besides my mom and dad kind of bullying me, they're like, you gonna get this culture. Like, we had to go to see the Nutcracker every year. We had to when my parents could afford it, there was an opera in my life. You were at
the Mummers every Thanksgiving.
They made us do stuff. But right, the Mummers is a perfect example, David, is where it's like, it is not off-putting or weird or awkward to put on literally a glitter and costume,
feathers,
and dance in the middle of the street, drunk or not. That is not like, people are just like, oh, that's cool. We do that all the time. And so I like, when you come from a culture that's like that, standing out is not problematic, right? Like, and I feel like in New Mexico, it's similar but different in that it's so normalized that you're like, to walk up the street and see like the illest like guitarist you've ever seen, like with their bucket in their cup, just strumming along, and to like randomly walk into a gallery and see like, world-class art. You're just like, yeah, we do this all the time. And so we have to like remind ourselves sometimes, and it's a function of the sunsets, really. Like literally, I feel like when you, like, other people are like, oh, I saw a sunset last week. And I'm like, there were 7 of them. And they were all gorgeous. Oh, where do you? Oh, you live in Oregon. Oh, that's why. Okay, I got you, dog. I got you. Like, it's not fair. It's not fair.
No, we have art every day on the skyline, every single day.
Right. It's not fair.
It's just unbelievable. Like, it's just unbelievable to see what we've done. I love this from Andrea Sanchez. Name one famous contemporary female artist from New Mexico that's under 50.
What you want to say? how are we constituting famous? Because I would start out with our lineage of poets laureate, Jessica Helen Lopez and Michelle Otero, even though Michelle might be kind of approaching 50, right? But my crowd is like, I'm thinking of like visual artists. So I was just downtown last night, and I got to run into Sarah Roman, who is a poet and also one of the proprietors of Two Stone Betty. So she's more of a artist, right? But and I do believe New York City United has artwork and earrings and art from Two Stone Betty's, right? And Jody Herrera was down there, so she's a muralist and she has a mural on Civic Plaza, right? And so we got a plethora of young lady artists doing big things. I would say shout out to Mercedes Holtree, who depending upon the level of fame that poets actually have, she was like a 3-time, 4-time city champion slam poet and soon to be mother, but she's very well known nationally because she has like button poetry videos that have like almost 1 million views. And so sometimes you're not as well known where you live as you are abroad or in a particular sector, and so those are just a few of the famous folks from here.
I would expand the conversation even further, Hakim, and I would say, what's your definition of art? Like if you're just talking about specific poetry or if you're talking about visual painting, but one of the things I think people often overlook when it comes to New Mexico is the art that's put into our cuisine. I remember one of the most inspirational moments of my life is when Chef Maria Niquez won Chopped. Like she's the of Bocadillos fame. The first time Ron Patel ever bought me a Bocadillos sandwich, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. Like it was just that unreal. So I want to talk to you about maybe art adjacent or outside of that poetry circle that you're talking about and where you draw inspiration from in that, whether that be music, whether that be, more visual media, or whether that be experiential art, because I think we have so many people who don't consider themselves artists. But let me tell you, people who put on, all these events around the state that are iconic, you are artists as well. So where do you get that inspiration from, sort of like cross-disciplinarily?
I think it has to be cross-disciplinarily. Like I think that, when and I was joking earlier, but I did play soccer in college and I've been a soccer lover all my life. And so it was like actually a no-brainer once I got asked to be part of the train, the New Mexico United train, even before it had a name, right? I got to be on the train because I was just like, soccer's done so much for me just as a human being. It's how I made friends, it's things I did in college. It's my son now plays and that's how we connect. But I always felt like when I was in college, I played at Lees McRae College and I played at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. I always felt like I became a better Go Rams. I felt like I became a better soccer player over the summers. And it was because like soccer, being a college athlete is rigorous. You play like preseason 3-a-days, during the season, practices and games all the time. And then the off season hits and you get to go a few days without touching the soccer ball. And there's something that's true to be said about needing to miss something to love it, but also like letting your brain do other things and learn lessons from doing those that make different neural connections so that when it comes back to soccer, it is more expansive, agile, flexible, all those things, limber. And I feel like I used to do that because my other sports were like basketball and I used to run track. And I always felt like when I would not be playing soccer all the time and then I would come back to it, I had these leaps of progression in my skill set. I feel the same way about poetry. You mentioned music earlier. Like I feel like when I get the opportunity, and I've been in some bands here and there over the years, like when I get to like really lean into that and then I come back to poetry, my poetry's stronger, right? And so I generally tend to lose myself in music. And I'm remiss to the earlier question, famous female artist, my partner in crime on Isotopes Field, Ashley Say What More has traveled the world with like Coco Rosie. And so like, if you don't know her here, like there's people in other countries that know her. So she's pretty famous, right? Like, but in the beatbox world, especially, right. Very famous. And those are things like listening to music, listening to like music without words. Like it's obvious I'm a hip hop fan, but like I also listen to music without words because that activates different parts of your brain. And if you can activate those enough, when you come back to writing, you kind of approach it from a less linear and less predictable way. Visual art's always been a big muse because I grew up in a city, Philadelphia, that is one of the mural capitals of the world. Like their mural arts program has done some amazing things, not just in changing the trajectory of folks who were once getting busted and criminalized and turning them into world-class muralists. Like that's a great use of public dollars. We try to do the same in our public art program because Philly did it first and became an example of it. But to also see their work and be able to like, and have it invoke language out of you. So I'm a big fan of the visual arts as well.
Well, you mentioned, we've talked a lot about the arts. You mentioned, obviously, soccer's been a big part of your life from a young age. I would imagine that made it real easy for you to vibe with New Mexico United right off the bat.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I came from it. Like I already knew what it could do for a person, what it did for me. I already knew what it could do for a city. Like city's one of the rare cities that has 4 or 5 top level professional sports teams. Like, and really that's how we create community. So when I see what's happening with United here, I'm like, oh, this is like Philly about 50, 60 years ago, right? You know, and it'll carve its own path and it'll do its own thing. I mean, we're so unique here. It's unique how we took to it so fast. But I just know that in Philly, when you like just random on the street or greeting someone and you got nothing else to say, all the small talk is what are those sports teams doing? And I don't care, like I'm not a particularly huge hockey fan. I always know what the Flyers are doing though, because I'm gonna need to know. That's the water cooler. That's the water cooler conversation. Shout out to Gritty, right? That's the water.
Yes. Oh, I love Gritty. So Hawk, this is I follow a lot of accounts on Twitter, but there are only 3 accounts that I get alerts on.
Yes.
New Mexico United, The Curse, and Gritty.
Yeah. Yo, Gritty's wild. Like he's wild. It is really I once heard it said that like there's like you have an id, ego, and super ego. Like Gritty is the id of Philadelphia. Like
does that make the fanatic is the ego and swoop is the super ego?
There you go. Right.
Wow, that's incredible. Hawk, we are actually going to transition over to a very Philadelphia heavy segment here in a second where you and Dave show down in your Philadelphia knowledge. But one thing that popped into my mind is as you're talking through everything, right? And Dave, I hope this doesn't give you heartburn as the director of communications. I hope it doesn't upset Peter or Savannah or Chanel or anyone who have to deal with the logistics of my crazy ideas. But why don't we have a New Mexico United laureate position, right? So we name Hawk the first laureate. Yeah, and then from then on out, he selects the next one, and then the next one will select their successor. Like, there's just something kind of beautiful about that, right? Like, we can iron out the details later. I just need to hear from you guys. Yeah, this is definitely something we should do.
I mean, I love the idea, Hawk.
I mean, I am humbled by the selection. No committee, just like cash money's like this is what it is. I suggest you put a process in place for the inevitable pushback you're gonna get after you make a decision. But all things being equal, I can also say that yes, maybe this is something that it would be interesting and advantageous for our city and for the arts community. You guys have done it. You've done it in other spaces. You've done it with the merchandising. You've done it like I've just really appreciated that about the growth of this franchise. Right.
I'm just saying to you, like, who has more credentials on you to be the first laureate? We could open it up to an application process, but can anyone else say they made the USL New Mexico announcement on June 6, 2018? Can anyone say that they performed just an unbelievably earth-shattering performance with Ashley Say What Mori on Meow Wolf Night? Can anyone else say that they wrote The Legend of Troy Lesane? Like, again, we can open it up, and I'm sure there's incredible talent out there, but in my mind, there's just no better choice for the first one, man.
Maybe I if it's always retroactive for what you've done, then maybe I can ride with y'all. Then maybe.
Well, because we look, and to transition to another amazing young spoken word artist, I believe he goes by Z the Author on Instagram, but he's done a lot of different work for us.
Oh, so
good.
He's
just not something else.
You need to get my vote. You know how you have to you have to secret ballot for like NBA MVP and stuff like that. Like if I was in the Sports Writers Association, I would vote for Z the Author. I did. He would get my.
He's so good. He's so good.
Yes.
Let me tell you about this team from Burqueño, New Mexico. It just gets me every time I hear it. He is such a talented guy, and I hope he somehow hears this. So let's take one more break. Then let's come back on the other side. Let's play a little Philadelphia trivia showdown between David and Hakim, and then we'll wrap it up in the Cinnamon Cafe wrap it up section. Sound good, Dave?
Sounds great to me.
In New Mexico, we know true. true love, true beauty, true adventure, true color, and true culture. Because we are truly hot, truly unique, truly rich, and truly home to the greatest stories and heroes, caverns and mountains, music and dancing, sunrises and sunsets. Home to the artists, the warriors, and the multi-generational, multiracial, all-inclusive family that we call the United. It's true, the black and yellow. This shield, these people, these scenes. This is New Mexico United. And New Mexico United is New Mexico True.
Absolute fire from the video team. I don't know that I will ever stop loving that video. My goodness gracious, the scenes at the end, as with a poet's soul. What does that video
shout out to Manny Gonzalez, your city's third poet laureate, number 3. He was number 3. Yes,
unreal performance from him.
We might be the first podcast in history to have 2 Albuquerque poet laureates in the same episode.
Yes,
let's go.
Let's go.
Well, after that very serious cultural accomplishment, my friends, it's time to play a little Philadelphia trivia. I think I did a good job with this, but again, this is you guys' realm, so
we're from Philly, and we'll tell you if you really messed it up.
We will.
Yeah, that's what you're notoriously well known for. Yes.
One thing that Philly will do, and if neither David or I know it, then it was terrible.
We'll boo you. We will boo you. We'll throw snowballs at you. And I've switched, by the way, Hawk. I've switched from my first beer, had a Phillies cup. Now I've switched to a local seltzer in the Flyers cup.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Keeping the branding going. It was actually producer Dylan who came up with this game. So if it's terrible, it's his fault.
That's fair. If it's great, it's for you though, right?
That's right. That's right. If it pops off perfectly, I did it all myself without any of his help. If it's terrible, I shucked this on him at the last minute.
Poor Dylan. Poor Dylan. Look, he did not. Yes, Dylan. Get free, brother. Get free.
He's got to defend himself. He's got to defend himself from my tyranny. All right.
We have some stakes here. We have some stakes.
What do we want to do for stakes?
All right.
Hawk, we have a beautiful array of new T-shirts at the team shop. I bet if you defeat David,
no. We're gonna do better than that. We're gonna do better.
Okay.
Than that.
All right.
So Hawk, if I win, you have to accept the position as United Poet Laureate. If you win, we'll get you a personalized New Mexico True jersey.
Ooh, I'm here for that. I'll take them stakes. Let's go.
Lucas, you down for that?
It's on.
It's actually a win-win for me, but I will still take those stakes.
All right.
So Hawk, we're gonna have you go first because you are our guest, and we're gonna start in the realm of history.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Franklin moved to Philly in 1723. From what city was he moving? Was it A, Portsmouth, B, London, C, Boston, or D, New York? And I'm going to turn because I notoriously give stuff away. You have to give me your answer and say final answer.
Well, man, I thought Ben Franklin. I thought he emerged from the earth in Philadelphia. At least that's what they would. That's what
he was a tree. He was an old tree.
That's what they would teach in Philadelphia area schools. I'm gonna say London, and that he left the Europe escaping religious persecution as if the Quakers were persecuted. I don't know. Maybe.
Unfortunately, it's incorrect because your answer was good. It was actually Boston.
I was going to steal.
No, you're not going to steal. It's multiple choice. You don't get to steal in multiple choice. That means you get a 1 in 3 chance when someone else had a 1 in 4. No, we're playing this straight up, David.
That's fair.
None of your shenanigans.
That's disheartening that he actually came from Boston. Ben Franklin just lost a few points in my book. So anyhow,
tell Peter Trevisani that.
Like,
There was some sort of joke because this was pulled from like the Great Philly Quiz, which was something they did inside their newspaper, and they took some shot at the Patriots where they were like they knew they would have that epic meltdown in 2018. So you could tell it was definitely written by a Philadelphian.
I should have said because of the Boston Tea Party, but I just thought he was older than that. Darn it. Yeah.
Go Birds.
All right, Dave. I want you to know I actually looked up pronunciation on this one so I could get it as good as I could.
Is it the Schuylkill River?
The question is, what does Schuylkill mean? And you just messed it up because I practiced really hard to pronounce that right, and I wanted to impress you.
Yes.
I knew it.
That's basically David's like that is the divining rod. If people say they're from Philly, you put those letters up there and you'd be like, say that word.
Yep.
If they are, they can, and if they aren't, they can't.
It's skill.
Schuylkill. What does Schuylkill mean, Dave? Does it mean A, hidden river? Does it mean B, turtle crossing place? Does it mean C, place not to drink from? Or does it mean D, old black water?
All right, so if you've been in the Schuylkill River, you should know it's a place not to drink from because it gets a little nasty at some places. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say hidden river, A.
You are correct, and you're up 1-0, David. Bring it hard.
The Schuylkill, by the way, a wonderful walking path along the Schuylkill takes you through much of like historic Philadelphia around the city. You ride your bike along there; it's beautiful.
Gorgeous. Boathouse Row.
Yes.
The vehemently contested new design of one of the Sixers jerseys is a Boathouse Row, but yeah. But in person, Boathouse Row is gorgeous.
Just so you know, in my notes to read that question, I did not put the actual spelling of it. I put SKOO-KUL so that I would know how to actually say it.
Yep, the Schuylkill.
All right, Hawk, you're up. What motto is engraved on the Liberty Bell? Can you get it without the choices? Or do you need the choices?
I need the choices.
All right, A is the tree of liberty must be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants. B is this be the Liberty Bell. C is give me liberty or give me death. And D is proclaim liberty throughout all the land.
It's definitely this be the Liberty Bell. It's definitely that.
I'm going to go with 4, even though I didn't hear anything that sounded familiar. Give us, I know that give us your free, your poor, your meek, and that part, but yeah, 4. Let's go with number 4.
4 is correct. Proclaim liberty throughout the land. There's a second part to it. It comes from Leviticus. We have a question here from Robert
verse, right? Because it was an Emma Lazarus poem, but as party to the poem was the biblical verse. So that's the part that I didn't know that well, which is a shame for a preacher's son.
We're
Dave,
on to 1.
what disease killed more than 5,000 Philadelphians, a tenth of the city's population, in 1793? Was it A, the yellow fever, B, affluenza, C, cholera, or D, bubonic plague? That was not a mistake on B. They actually did write in affluenza, and I chuckled a lot. So the actual choice is A, yellow fever, C, cholera, or D, bubonic plague.
Bubonic plague feels very European, so I'm going to say cholera.
When I took this quiz to originally get the answers, that's what I said as well. And unfortunately, it is incorrect. The correct answer is yellow fever. So we are all knotted up 1-1 through 2.
I was going to say yellow fever.
Sure you were.
Because of United, like yellow fever. Black and yellow.
Oh, no. I don't have that level of sophistication in my question writing, sir. Like, I don't need you for a second to think I'm thinking that multi-level. I'm just basically copying and pasting.
How many questions are we each getting? Is it 5 or what's the plan here?
I have 10 total, and then I have a tiebreaker at the end that I sure hope we get to because it's a banger. Producer Dylan knows this. Hawk, your next question is what Protestant denomination was founded in Philadelphia? Was it A, the Shakers, B, the Quakers, C, the African Methodist Episcopalians, or was it D, the Branch Davidians?
I will take B, the Quakers, for 500.
I would say you're unfortunately wrong for 500. You can't take that. I thought that as well. Apparently, that's a different part of the state. The denomination that was founded here was the African Methodist Episcopalians.
I believe the Quakers were in Allentown.
AFME. That's right. You're right about that. That's crazy. Yeah, that is that's a specialized branch of the Black Church. Actually, yes.
Allentown, PA, just about 45 minutes, Hawk, outside of Philly. I think that's where the Quakers were founded.
Where Dorney Park, home to Dorney Park.
That's right.
See, here was the thing. Like, no matter how much you care for amazing, insightful conversation about poetry from Hakim Bellamy, you can always come to United Sessions and get some good Jeopardy material, right? Like, I actually heard a Jeopardy question come up the other day that we had talked about in one of our dumb games, David. So, good stuff. Dave, you're up, and you got a chance to take a little bit of an edge here. In 1969, before he became mayor, Frank Rizzo famously showed up to a disturbance at 26th and Tasker with what tucked into the cummerbund of his tuxedo? Was it A, a bouquet, B, a nightstick, C, a bottle of whiskey, or D, a Tommy gun?
Whew.
Oh.
I was sure until I heard a Tommy gun. That feels a little bit Philly, doesn't it?
It feels a little bit
A
Rizzo.
lot of it feels a little bit Philly.
Yeah.
There's a romantic side, there's a violent side, and there's a drunken side. So
but if you know Mayor Rizzo, the Tommy gun kind of makes sense. I'm gonna say D, the Tommy gun.
Dang, Dave, I think this is one of those situations where you second guessed yourself out of it. What were you gonna say originally?
I was gonna say the liquor.
No, you would have missed twice.
The baton.
It was a nightstick. Yeah, tucked it in there. Had to lay a little waste to people. All right, still tied.
I think I remember that there's a photo out there of that, him in a suit and Frank Rizzo, former police commissioner turned mayor.
Yeah.
The funny thing was the nightstick in the cummerbund was probably like one of 6 nightsticks he had in his repertoire. Like, he probably chose it because he was like, this is the most decorative one.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Hawk, I believe you're up. Which cable news host was born in Philadelphia? Was it A, Jake Tapper,
on.
B, Michael Smirkonish, C, Don Lemon, or D, Chris Matthews?
JT, baby. Jake Tapper.
It's Tapper, and it's pronounced Smirkonish.
It is.
Well, you're both wrong, and I'm glad that I got to say that afterwards.
Wait, what?
So Jake Tapper I actually looked into the research of this. He was very considered like big time Philadelphia,
He's
but he was
Philly
actually
boy.
born in New York City.
Are you kidding?
Chris
Wow,
Matthews was the only one that was born in Philadelphia.
Oh, I didn't even hear Chris. I stopped listening after Jake Tapper.
Me
Yeah,
too.
sure. Chris Matthews, yeah, sure. Like the hardball.
What do they
Tapper
tell
claims
you guys
Philly.
in standardized testing 101? Read the question in its
I know.
Tapper
Stop
claims
listening.
Philly. Tapper claims Philly. I think Hawk should get a half point for that.
Tapper
No
claims
half
Philly
point.
hard. And,
No.
and sometimes Philly doesn't claim Chris Matthews, especially as of late. He's got some trouble in there.
Yeah.
Look it up. Look it up for those at
It's
home.
facts though, Hawk. I mean,
Cancel-
facts are
Cancel
the
culture. I know. There's a problem with being born in Philly. You can never be canceled. You're always going to be from Philly. So,
all right.
It's a
Dave,
blessing and a curse.
yeah.
Dave, here we go, buddy. In the early 2000s, the Phillies almost built a new stadium where? A, in West Philly, B, in Chinatown, C, in Camden, or D, in the Delaware River?
Well, I don't think it's Camden. That's where the River Sharks played. They don't play there anymore. It's not going to be in the river. So we got Chinatown and West Philly. Chinatown's crowded, man. Oh, I'm going to say Chinatown.
You would be correct. That is clutch, David.
I knew it. Yes.
Got shut down because of vehement neighborhood.
I think I
opposition.
remember that. Oh, I wasn't alive, but I remember hearing about that.
You were alive in the early 2000s.
Oh,
David.
was it in the thousands? I thought it was earlier.
God, it's like you don't even listen to me. I read these questions with such clarity, and you
I
don't
got it
even
right.
care. You did get it right. Hawk.
You did get it right.
Rest in peace, the vet.
Hawk, in 1943, the NFL was faced with a manpower shortage due to World War II. And for that season, Philly and Pittsburgh merged for the NFL team. What was the name of that team? Was it A,
If you don't know it, I do.
the Feather Ingots, B, the Steelbirds, C, the Steagles, or D, the Pit Combine?
I will take 3, the Steagles.
I have in my notes that is an acceptable answer. If we were being highly technical, it was actually the Pit Combine, but everyone hated it so much they just called them the Steagles.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Pit Combine, really? Like, who did they pay to do that?
I've never heard of the Pit Combine, but I've heard of the Steagles.
Heard of the Steagles. Yes. It's epic.
All right, Dave, you get this one. Game over, buddy. Game
Woo!
over, and we don't even get to the tiebreaker. Hawk, you just have to sit here and hope for disaster on David Carl.
I'm hoping. As much as I like Mr. Carl Sr., that's Carl Sr., not Jr. Put some respect on his name.
Thank you.
That's the start of David's poem.
More sports would be great.
It is more sports, and I'm a little bit disappointed because I knew the answer to this one when I wrote the question, and I don't know anything about this, but let's see. Let's see how you do, Dave. What Philly sports star's most famous quote is "fo fo fo"? Was it A, Sixer center Moses Malone? Was it B, Phillies third baseman Willie Puddinhead Jones? Was it C, Eagles running back Ricky Waters? Or was it D, Flyers goalie Bernie Parent?
It's pronounced Perrant, and it was not Bernie. Only the Lord saves more than Bernie Perrant. I'm going to say Moses Malone.
Ah!
Hawk knows. Hawk knows.
Congratulations, Mr. Carl.
Congratulations to you, the first ever United laureate. Yes.
Yes.
So in that game, I was able to put on for both of my cities, for Philly and getting Hawk to be our poet laureate. I'm very happy with that.
The tiebreaker is so
You know what? I've got a whole new level of respect for Mr. I already respected him, but like, you know how Philly is, you know, we're like, earn it, prove it. He just proves it. He proves it.
Show your stripes.
Yes.
So the tiebreaker is my famous, and we have like 1 second, so I would be remiss if we did not do it, which
Hawk,
is this.
Hawk, you answer the tiebreaker.
Yeah, this is Hawk. Hawk, which basketball rule change was not made because of Will Chamberlain? So I'm going to name 4 rule changes that happened.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is not because of him, but the other 3 are.
Oh.
So the first first option is the rule changes requiring that free throws actually be shot to keep him from taking a running start, leaping from the foul line, and then dunking his foul shots.
I want that to be true.
I do kind of want that to be true too.
B, widening the lane from 12 feet to 16 feet to keep him farther from the hoop.
That sounds totally rational. That's for
C,
sure true.
installing a shot clock to keep the 7'1" Chamberlain from eating time by holding the ball above his head where nobody could reach it.
That'd be a separate violation.
I've seen videos of him doing that, so that's definitely true.
D, insinuating or instituting offensive goaltending to keep him from alley-ooping inbounds passes from behind the net.
Yeah, I actually feel like the first one is the one.
I agree with Hawk on that.
So you're saying, just to be clear, you think that rule was not instituted because of Wilt Chamberlain? Because 3 of these are actual rules that were instituted. One is not.
Yeah, I agree. I think the latter 3, B, C, and D, were definitely rules they made to make sure he didn't score as much. Yes.
See, I agree with you, but the way Lucas said that made me second guess the whole thing.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to report that it was actually A, B, and D. The shot clock was the one that was not in relation to him, but that dude would literally get a running start at his free throws and dunk them. If you've read Bill Simmons' book of basketball or the great autobiography Wilt, he would do that. And can you imagine being back in his era of basketball and he does that? And you're just collectively like to your neighbor, like, can he do that?
Right.
Wow. I would love to see video of that.
I would too. That's like, yeah. I mean, that's worse than the Hack-a-Shack, worse than all the other things they've come back.
Well, I mean, in his earlier, more athletic days, that would have been a great way for Shaq to deal with the Hack-a-Shack, is just to get a running start at it.
I'm sorry, Shaq was never fast enough to dunk from the free throw line. I love Shaq, but no.
Was this before like the advent of the traveling call, or he would just like I guess when the ref gives you the ball, you like it's all game.
It's a dead ball. It's a dead ball on the free throw. You can do whatever you want.
Wow. Euro step dunk, right? Just Euro step it to the hoop, like man.
Just six steps, take off at the free throw line and go.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable, guys. It's been an unbelievable episode. Hawk, I feel like we have easily 4, 5, 6 more hours. So let's go ahead and get you onboarded as the United Laureate, get you comfortable in that role, and then we'll bring you back for a couple episodes in the future. How's that sound?
It's nice to be a laureate again. Thank you guys for having me tonight. It's cool.
It's wonderful, and we still need to figure out the rules around laureate. I don't really know that. So now we
forgot one thing. We forgot one thing.
Yeah.
Swear, your book. Let's talk about it a little bit.
Yes. Well, that came out on UNM Press. It was just dumb luck that it came out the same year I was elected to the laureateship. I'd been working on it prior to that, so no decisions had been made on laureate when I was when I was going through the manuscript process. And then it came out thanks to John Crawford, rest in peace, from West End Press. And ironically, that was, I was working on that in 2011. It came out in 2012 when I became laureate. Now, 10 years later, this year, early next year, I'll be having my second book come out on University of New Mexico Press called Commissions and Corridos. And it's part of the series that in my current capacity, we are a part of the Arts and Culture Department for the city of Albuquerque. We've published books for all 4 poet laureates. Ironically, I'm the first, and then Mario Ishii, who's your current poet laureate, will have a 5th book in that series. So that'll be coming out in 2021, 22, almost a decade after Swear. And maybe if you get both, you could see that I've either improved greatly as a writer or declined greatly as a writer. I'll leave that up to you.
It's like a sail around the ocean. It's all what you make of it and you interpret. All right, so we've moved into the Cinnamon Cafe wrap it up portion. Dave, just real quickly before we wrap this up, we are really excited about this initiative, and people should get prepared because Cinnamon is about to put out a burrito punch card.
Are we talking about this? I didn't know if we were allowed to. All right, we're talking about
I don't know. It's going to
happening.
get people excited, and you're like 85% of the reason it happened because, like, literally that's a staple of your diet. So, like, burrito punch cards from Cinnamon, man. Like, I know you are the biggest fanboy of these things. How excited are we?
So I eat Cinnamon Cafe burritos probably 3 to 4 days a week. One of the best breakfast burritos in town. Also, they're like super affordable, less than $4. They're so good. Sausage red is my go-to. But what they're doing now is this initiative that is also super helpful for me, also really bad for me health-wise. But anyway, burrito punch cards, right? You get 10 punches on your burrito punch card. When you get to 10 punches, Cinnamon buys burritos for the entire front office.
Ooh.
Like, come on.
There couldn't be a better initiative. Like, there's
Not
never
for
been
me.
more
I mean,
fun.
I'm buying 10 burritos every 2 weeks, so this is perfect.
Yes.
But what's more perfect about it is it gets people into Cinnamon. And let me tell you, as our neighbors, you dream of having neighbors like Cinnamon. They are the best. We want to see everyone supporting them. We want you to support the entire Nob Hill area. And quite honestly, you can make a heck of a couple hours just walking around the Nob Hill Business Center. Come see us. Go visit a couple of the restaurants. Go visit a couple of the local businesses, the bookstore, the scent shop. Go pick up your produce from the co-op. I mean, we have an amazing little neighborhood, and Cinnamon is definitely a big part of that. So stay tuned. The punch cards are not up yet. Do not bomb our front office with calls of like, how do I get my burrito punch card? We will let you know when they're available, but very excited to be partnering with Cinnamon. Hawk, what was your favorite part of the show tonight, my friend?
Well, now I have a new burrito place. That's got to be my favorite part of the show because I've never had that, and I will be having that. So I feel like I learned that. My favorite part of the show was just being here with y'all, man. Like, I will say this, because you were asking before I got on, because I was in the virtual green room. You talked about like the game. My highlight was Brian Brown being on the field for 2 minutes and Austin's keeper being not very bold. And
how do you get chipped like that? How do you get chipped?
I think he just came on. Like, so that was crazy.
Big Dave, you're next.
I loved, selfishly, I love the part where Hawk talked about the journalism, his journalism background becoming poetry. And in my mind, journalism is a form of poetry. It's telling stories. It's relaying information, yes, but it's more so about telling the stories of people who maybe don't have the opportunity to tell the stories themselves. And that's the thing I love most about journalism and why I got into it. And I think there's such a huge overlap with that and what poetry is and what poetry can be and what journalism can be. So, I mean, for me, that just kind of struck a chord. I love journalism, I love poetry, and I love that symbiotic relationship and the overlap that they have.
I love that as the closest of a lifelong New Mexican, because I'm a bit of a pretender myself. I was born in Wyoming, but came here when I was 7 months old. I'm so proud of the trajectory of New Mexico. And that starts back a decade and a half ago when you guys started migrating to this state and you fell in love with this state. And now you are just as bona fide a New Mexican as there can be. You're an ambassador for the state. And it just gives me so much excitement that as we continue to get more messaging out there and we continue to raise beautiful generations of younglings inside this state, you're not going to be forgetting about New Mexico for too much longer. Like, you're going to have New Mexico at the forefront of your mind. And it's because of people like you, Hakim Bellamy. It's because of people like you, David Carl, that you're incredible individuals that come to this place and you realize, wow, this place is paradise. There's art, there's great food, there's people who would die for you.
Nowhere I'd rather be.
Yeah, you saw that on full display this weekend. I think that was the most magical part of the whole thing. So Hakim, congratulations on your appointment with United. We'll work out the paperwork and the details later. David, wonderful to hang out with you as always on a Monday night. There's not a better way to spend a Monday than it is with you guys. I'll give you the floor until it's time to do the wrap up, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it on our end. If you can, give us a chance, rate, like, subscribe, download the podcast. It helps us get into more ears. We want, as we get more downloads and more ratings, more people hear what we have to say, and we're about community first. We want people to hear that community message. Soccer's great, but soccer's secondary to community. So if you give us a rating, give us a review, give us a download, we greatly appreciate it.
Hawk, put a bow on your appearance, my friend.
Borges, Jalen, and Jacoby. Show them some love. Show them some love because, I just love it. You know, I said it earlier. The legacy of talk radio is strong and in me, and the force is strong in you guys. And there's nothing better to be talking about, to David's point, than community. And it's nice when you could talk about soccer at the same time. So thank you to the United family. Love you. And let's go get them next game.
Let's go get them next game. Lucas Cash. Until then, somos unidos.
We are united.